Hello, folks. Mobile automation is the buzzword everywhere. As the mobile businesses are flourishing, more and more need arises to deliver quality application to the end users who can make the most out of it. When it comes to quality, testing directly comes into the picture, as without testing, you cannot make out whether the application is working as expected. Now, as we are talking about mobile applications and automated testing, one of the useful resources on this is using emulators for testing the mobile application, as it is always difficult to get latest mobile devices for testing. In this video, I'll show you how to install Android Studio on Windows 10, configure the Android home path, configure running ADB command from command prompt, creating a virtual device or an emulator, start and run the emulator, install APK file on the emulator, how to run an emulator from command line. So without much delay, let's begin. So the first step that we'll be performing now is downloading Android Studio from its official website. So let's go to the official website. And now just click on this first link that we get. And here is the latest version of Android Studio. We can click on this link here to download the Android Studio Flamingo version, which is the latest version, and install it on our local machine. I already have the exe file downloaded on my machine. So let me double click on it and begin the installation process. So it will ask me which components to install. I'll also take this Android virtual device, click on next. It will ask me for the path where I need to install the Android Studio. So I'll just select the path. And I need to give the folder name as well. It will ask me for the start menu folder. I can keep it as default. Click on install. It will take some time to install. Let's wait for that. Click next and then click on finish. So I already have this start Android Studio checkbox ticks. So it will automatically start Android Studio as soon as I click on this finish button here. So we have this Android Studio up and running. So before we begin anything, let's first go to the Android SDK manager and install all the Android SDK components for smooth working of the Android Studio with the emulator part. So I already have some of the things ticked here. SDK tools as well. We need to tick this Android SDK build, Android SDK command line tools, Android emulator, Android hypervisor driver, Android SDK platform tools, and also Intel x86 emulator accelerator as well. I'll click on apply and it get a message of installation. So I'll just click on OK to confirm the changes. It will ask me for the emulator settings. So let me keep it as the recommended one, that is 2 GB. So this is the amount of gigabytes that will be assigned to my emulator by default. Next. And finish. It said like it couldn't complete some of the process. That is fine for now. I'll just begin. So I have all the packages installed now. Let me open the command prompt and run the command ADB. Now I see the message as ADB is not recognized as an internal or external command. So we need to set up the Android home path. And for doing that, let me open the environment variables. Here, click on new, give the name variable name as Android home, and we set the path of this Android SDK. Now, this path Android SDK is being updated or configured from the path here. So this Android SDK location, I've already updated that location as in my G drive. There's a folder called Android SDK where all the Android SDK components will be installed. And I need to give the same path in the variable as well. So I'll just quickly copy this path and paste it here. Click OK. So my environment variable for Android Home is set. I just need to go to the path variable and update the Android Home variable here. This will be like Android underscore home and then slash. So there needs to be two folder path that we need to give here. One is the platform tools. So I'll just copy this folder name from here and update it here. The second part that I need to give is related to this emulator. Let me copy that as well and paste it here. And click OK. Okay. Let me exit this command prompt and open it again. And now run the command adb. And we can see the command is running successfully here. Just to be sure, let me run the command as adb devices. It's just a normal command to check what all devices are connected to your computer or your laptop. So currently I don't have any of the devices or emulators running. None of the real device or the emulator are connected to my PC. So that's the reason why I don't see any list of the devices attached. To kill this server, we can type the command as adb space kill hyphen server. This is handy when normally what happens is sometimes the Android Studio or something hangs up and you need to restart your ADB server. So this command can be used to manually restart the ADB server and then rerun your automation test. Okay, now let me take you to the other part. We have already set the Android home. Let's start and see how we can create a virtual device or an emulator here. So first, we need to open the Android Studio. In the most actions link here, when we click, we will see a menu here. We need to go to Virtual Device Manager. Click on it. And from here, we need to click on the Create Device button. This will open a dialog box, which will ask us to select the hardware, like what kind of phone do you want or what kind of emulator or virtual device you want to create. So I'll take this Pixel XL. So it also has a various category, like you can also create a phone, tablet, wearable OS, kind of like watch or something. You can also create a desktop or a TV or an automotive. It all depends upon the type of emulator that you want to create. But currently we are focusing on mobile automation testing. So I'll be creating a emulator of a mobile device, which is Pixel XL. Create next. And here, if you see, we already have this Android S version, which is Android 12.0. So Android versions are alphabetically named. And the current version that we have here is Tiramisu, which actually requires some kind of downloading because I don't have this binary downloaded. I have the binary downloaded for Android 12. But if you want to start with Android 13, you can just click on this button here and it will ask for some additional download of the binary. See, we can just click on accept, click next. And ideally, it requires like around 1.4 GB of the data to be downloaded. So currently, I'll click on cancel because I already have the binary for 12.0. But if you want, you can download the latest binary and start with it as well. So I'll start with Android S, that's Android 12.0. The image, please keep in mind that on Windows, you need to have, if you're on a 64-bit machine, you need to have x86_64 build, the build binary. Otherwise, if you are not on a 64-bit machine, if you are on a 32-bit machine, your version would be like x86, something like that. But if you are on a Mac, it would have a different binary here. because ideally the architecture related to the build is different on Mac and Windows. So in Windows 64-bit machine, we have the x86-64 binary available. So I'll proceed with this. Now comes the name. So I'll give the name as Pixel XL virtual device, something like that, and also mention like 12, that refers to the Android version that I have. It becomes easier for me to understand that this virtual device runs on Android 12. And then there are some additional settings as well, which I can provide here. Like if you want the front camera, back camera, what would be the network speed, what would be the latency, if you want the graphics simulated, a kind of a different performance with regards to the graphics. How do you want the device performance? Like it should be multi-core, single core. You can also define the memory, RAM, VM heap, and so on. Since it's an emulator, it's more of a kind of a like you can provide the physical device settings as well, because the emulator provides us with the feasibility to provide real device kind of settings configurable in the phone. Also, there are other devices, other settings, like if you want to have the startup orientation as portrait or landscape, and so on. And from here also, if you want to change the screen size again, there's an option to change the phone. Like we selected Pixel XL. If you change your mind and you want to select something different from Pixel XL, you can directly come to this screen and click on this change button, and come to the screen and change the device that you've selected previously. Same way, you can also select the version, different version. If you change your mind at that before creating the emulator, you can also change the Android version. But I don't want to change anything here. I've already mentioned the AVD name. The default settings, the default advanced settings ideally will be this by default what was previously selected. I'll just click on finish. I see a device created here with the size 513 MB and API 13, which refers to Android 12. I'll just click on this play button here. It will start my virtual device. It will take some time depending upon the configuration of your hardware configuration of your personal computer, because it requires some good amount of memory to work with these emulators. So I have this emulator starting up. Let's wait for some time to get it started. So we have the emulator started now. Let's see how we can install an APK file on this emulator. So let me open the downloaded APK file folder here. To install the APK, we just need to drag and drop this APK to the emulator, and it will do all the necessary steps for the installation. And we can see the APK file that I've downloaded previously is been installed on the emulator successfully. So this is the WebDriver IO demo APK that I have installed. Let me click on this, and we can see the APK getting installed successfully, and it's running successfully. The app is running fine now. We can see the different menus opening successfully here, the home, swipe, everything working fine here. Drag and drop as well. So this was a basic demo, like how to install your APK file. You can click on this home button and verify the different applications that are installed on your emulator here. Also, if you want to do some major settings on this emulator, like for example, you need to set a location, set a kind of a different display, cellular settings, camera settings, or battery settings, and so on. You can manage it using these options available here. Just need to click on these three dots that have been displayed in the menu option. And once you click here, it will open up a new screen where you will be able to set the location of your phone as well, and perform the different kinds of testing. So just click on this save settings. It will ideally set the location of your phone to the respective, like currently set on USA, and you can perform the testing as you want. Now Having seen that, let me also tell you about, like, we have in one emulator. The name is Pixel XL Virtual Device 12. Let me stop this emulator for now by pressing the stop button and then clicking the close button here. Once it shut down, you'll see the play button again coming up here. Now, how do I start an emulator using a command line interface? Let's check that next. So on your command prompt, just run this command called emulator hyphen list hyphen avds and sorry avds, and this will list all the emulators that are created, the virtual devices actually that are created on your local machine. Now, if I want to start that emulator from this command prompt itself, what I need to do is I just need to run the command emulator, put an at the rate, and then copy paste the name of the emulator that I want to run. And this will start the emulator directly from the command line interface. Now you see the emulator coming up, and it started. The same way, I can like shut it off from here and close it, and then I can press Control C to exit this command. This is how you start and stop the emulator from the command line interface. One more command that I forgot to show you previously, sorry, is if you want to see the path for your Android home that you had set in the environment variables, you can use this echo command here and write like Android underscore home in caps. That should be written between the percentage symbol, two percentage symbol. The command should be like echo percentage Android home Android underscore home and then the percentage and then press enter. So it will show you the actual path of the Android home that has been set on your environment variable. The most important point that I want to tell you about is regarding the storage. So once you create your virtual device, it gets created in your C drive. There's a users folder inside that, your username. So currently I'm on the my username is Faisal Khatri. So inside this I have a .android folder that is created, and inside that there's an AVD folder getting generated here. Now if I check the total if I check the properties, I see the value or the total amount of storage that has been used by this folder is 9.75 GB. Now, what happens if your C drive has a lesser space? So, if you want to shift this particular folder to some other path in your system, how do you do that? So, that's also very easy to do. First, you need to like close your Android Studio. But before, okay, we just close the Android Studio here. Now, let's open the environment variable folder, environment variable settings, go to this environment variable and create a new environment variable called Android underscore SDK underscore home. And inside this, give the path where you want the actual AVD to get generated somewhere else from the C drive. So what I'll do is I'll go to this Android SDK itself, and inside this I'll just clear all these things. I don't need anything. I have an AVDs folder here. I want to set the path for this Android SDK home to be in the AVDs folder. So I'll just copy this path hole from here and set it here. Click on OK and OK. Okay, that's it. Open the Android Studio application now. As soon as you open the Android application, you see the path in which you had just set the Android SDK home. You see an .android folder getting generated. Now let us quickly generate a new virtual device. Since we have already discussed, I won't be going into details creating the AVD now. Just create with the default values, click on finish. So you see, as soon as I change that path, the previously generated virtual device is not being seen in the list here. That is because I've already changed the path. And now, if I go to this new path which I've set for the Android SDK home, I'll see the AVD getting generated here. And if I check the properties of this file, I see 513 MB. So you can now go to the previously generated folder out there, this Android folder, and ideally delete this value. So this Android folder can be safely deleted now. And this will ideally save a lot of my memory. Previously, it took like 10 GB of the memory from my device on the C drive itself. Now that has been shifted to this Android SDK and AVDs folder, which is very useful in case if you are running low on your C drive, because ideally most of the softwares are installed on your C drive only, and you would require some memory for running your application there. So ideally it's good to like shift your Android SDK home as well. That becomes handy to run all your tests as well as your saving your AVDs on a different path. One thing to note here is in the other path, you can create any folder for setting the Android SDK home. It's not that you need to like AVDS name only for that folder to change your SDK, Android SDK home path. You can create any new folder, provide any name to that folder, and then set that environment variable for that Android SDK home. I hope you got a better understanding about how to install and set up the configuration for the Android Studio for running your mobile testing, mobile application testing. Do like the video, subscribe to my channel, and keep watching this space for more such informative posts. Thank